My beloved child, there is a specific kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with how much sleep you get. It is the exhaustion of constantly performing. The tiredness that comes from feeling like you cannot simply exist. You must always be achieving something, impressing someone, proving that you deserve to be here. This is what I want to speak about today. Not in abstract terms, but with clarity about what is actually happening inside your mind and why. The problem I am addressing is this. Many of you have developed a pattern where your sense of worth is tied entirely to your output. Your value feels conditional. You believe somewhere deep in your nervous system that if you stop producing, stop achieving, stop being useful, you will become invisible, unwanted, easy to leave behind. This is not a character flaw. This is not weakness. This is a learned psychological pattern, and understanding how it formed is the first step toward freedom from it. Let me explain how this happens. When a child grows up in an environment where love and attention are given primarily in response to performance, good grades, good behavior, being helpful, being quiet, being impressive, that child's brain learns a specific equation. Performance equals safety, achievement equals belonging, being useful equals being loved. This is not always taught through cruelty. Sometimes it is taught through praise that only comes when you succeed. Sometimes it is taught through silence, the absence of acknowledgement when you simply exist without producing anything. Over time, the mind begins to internalize this equation, and here is what makes it so powerful. This pattern moves from conscious belief into automatic behavior. You no longer think, I must prove myself to be loved. Instead, you simply feel anxious whenever you are not being productive. You feel guilty when you rest. You feel worthless when you fail. Not as a logical conclusion, but as an immediate emotional experience. The original need was safety and connection. The strategy your mind developed to meet that need was constant performance. And because that strategy helped you survive childhood, your brain categorized it as essential. It became part of your identity. Now, even in situations where no one is judging you, where no one requires you to perform, you cannot stop. Because the pattern is no longer about the external world. It is running inside you automatically beneath conscious awareness. If you recognize this pattern operating in your own life, the inability to rest without guilt, the constant pressure to prove yourself, leave a comment with 3 words. I notice this. Not as a request, not as surrender, simply as acknowledgement. Awareness is where change begins. This channel is demonetized again. If you want to support this channel, then buy me a coffee from the link in the description. Let me go deeper into how this pattern sustains itself. There are 3 mechanisms that keep you trapped in the cycle of proving yourself. The first is the moving goalpost. When your worth depends on achievement, no achievement is ever enough. You finish a project, and instead of feeling satisfied, you immediately think about the next one. You reach a goal, and instead of resting, you raise the bar. This is because the underlying belief, I am not enough as I am, remains untouched by external success. The achievement addresses the symptom, not the cause. So the emptiness returns, and you chase the next thing. This is why many high achievers feel hollow inside. They have accomplished much, but they have never addressed the belief that drives the accomplishment. They are running on a track that has no finish line. The second mechanism is anticipatory anxiety. Your mind begins to fear future failure before it happens. You imagine scenarios where you are judged, rejected, or found inadequate. This creates suffering in the present moment based on events that have not occurred. And because this anxiety is uncomfortable, you work harder to prevent the imagined failure. The pattern feeds itself. Anxiety produces overwork. Overwork produces exhaustion. Exhaustion produces mistakes. Mistakes confirm the fear. The cycle continues. The third mechanism is identity attachment. Over time, you begin to believe that you are your achievements. Your sense of self becomes inseparable from your output. When you succeed, you exist. When you fail, you disappear. This is why failure feels so devastating. It does not just mean you made a mistake. It feels like you have lost yourself. When identity is built on performance, rest becomes terrifying. Because in stillness, without achievement, who are you? This question creates so much fear that most people never stop long enough to face it. Now let me show you how this pattern operates in ordinary situations. In work, you say yes to more than you can handle because saying no feels like admitting inadequacy. You stay late not because the work requires it, but because leaving on time makes you feel lazy. You check emails on weekends because disconnecting triggers guilt. In relationships, you feel you must be constantly useful to be loved. You struggle to receive care without immediately trying to repay it. You fear that if you become less impressive, less successful, less helpful, you will be abandoned. This creates a transactional feeling in relationships, where love seems like something you must earn rather than something you can simply accept. In self-talk, when you make a mistake, your inner voice is harsh. It does not say, "That was a learning experience." It says, "You are not good enough." This harshness feels normal to you because it has been with you for so long. You may even believe that self-criticism motivates you, but what it actually does is reinforce the belief that you are inadequate at your core, and only punishment can keep you in line. In comparison, you constantly measure yourself against others, not for genuine inspiration, but to determine your worth. When someone else succeeds, you feel diminished, as if their value somehow reduces yours. This makes genuine celebration of others difficult. It makes collaboration feel like competition. It makes you lonely even in the company of others. If you recognize these patterns, understand, this is not a personal failure. This is the logical outcome of a mind that learned to equate worth with performance. The behavior makes sense once you understand its origin. Now I will explain something important. The self that you are trying to prove worthy, the self that is constantly performing, achieving, seeking approval, is not your true self. It is a construction, a mental image built from past experiences, societal expectations, and survival strategies. This constructed self, which I call the ego, is inherently unstable. It is made of thoughts and beliefs, so it must be constantly maintained. It needs external validation to feel real. It needs achievement to feel valuable. It needs comparison to know where it stands. But beneath this construction, there is something that does not require proof. There is awareness itself, the part of you that observes thoughts, witnesses emotions, and remains present regardless of success or failure. This awareness does not fluctuate with achievement. It does not diminish when you fail. It does not need to be earned. The exhaustion you feel comes from trying to sustain an image that was never meant to be permanent. You are working endlessly to prop up a false self, while your true nature remains untouched by the entire drama. This is not philosophy. This is practical observation. When you are no longer identified with the ego's demands, the compulsion to prove yourself naturally weakens, not because you become lazy, but because action is no longer driven by fear. Let me now offer something practical, not a command, not a technique to perform, but something to notice. First, begin observing the moments when you feel compelled to prove yourself. Do not try to stop the feeling, simply observe it. Notice where it appears in your body, notice what thoughts accompany it, notice what you are afraid will happen if you do not perform. This observation creates a small gap between the pattern and your response. In that gap, freedom begins to grow. Second, notice how you speak to yourself after failure. The harshness of your inner voice is not truth, it is conditioning. When you observe it clearly without resisting it, you begin to see it as a learned habit rather than reality. Over time, this weakens its power, not through fighting it, but through understanding it. Third, pay attention to how you feel when you rest. If rest creates anxiety, guilt, or restlessness, this reveals the pattern clearly. You are not anxious because rest is wrong. You are anxious because your mind believes that your worth depends on constant activity. Seeing this clearly allows the belief to be questioned. Fourth, observe what happens when you succeed. If success does not bring lasting peace, if you immediately move to the next goal, this shows that external achievement cannot address the internal belief. This is important to see, not as a reason for despair, but as clarity about where the real work lies. The solution is not more achievement. The solution is addressing the belief that you are not enough. I do not ask you to simply believe that you are enough. That phrase, repeated without understanding, becomes hollow. It becomes another performance, another attempt to convince yourself of something your nervous system does not believe. Instead, I offer understanding. When you truly understand that your sense of inadequacy is a learned pattern, not a reflection of reality, something shifts. When you see clearly that the compulsion to prove yourself is a survival strategy from childhood, running on automatic, you no longer take it as truth. When you recognize that no amount of external achievement can fill an internal void, you stop expecting it to. This understanding does not happen in one moment. It develops through repeated observation. Each time you notice the pattern, you weaken its grip. Each time you see the fear beneath the performance, you become less controlled by it. Each time you rest without guilt, even for a moment, you prove to your nervous system that worth does not depend on output. Transformation is not dramatic. It is gradual. It is the accumulation of small moments of clarity. Let me now summarize what we have explored. The exhaustion of constantly proving yourself comes from a learned belief that your worth is conditional. This belief often forms in childhood when love and attention are tied to performance. Over time, this becomes an automatic pattern, driving overwork, self-criticism, comparison, and the inability to rest. The pattern sustains itself through moving goalposts, anticipatory anxiety, and identity attachment. It appears in work, relationships, self-talk, and how you respond to both success and failure. The solution is not more achievement. The solution is clear understanding of how the pattern operates and consistent observation of it in action. And as awareness increases, the pattern loses its automatic power. Action continues, but it is no longer driven by fear. Rest becomes possible without guilt. Worth is no longer something to be proven. You are not broken. You are operating according to a program that made sense once but no longer serves you. Understanding this is the beginning of freedom. Take this understanding with you. Apply it to your life. Watch how it changes things, not through force, but through clarity.